I retired when I was 21 years old. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it and how you could do it too. I'm also going to give you some examples of what exactly I did. So if you stick with me towards the end of the video, you'll get a better idea and it'll better click towards the end. I haven't had to work for a few years. I didn't need to work since I was 21 years old. And I should probably say, what do I mean by retirement? Did I have millions of dollars worth of cash saved up? No, I didn't need to. I just didn't have to work. So in my opinion, most people have the wrong idea of what retirement actually is. They think they need to save up $1 million, $2 million, $4 million, whatever that number is. And conventional wisdom says stick it in an index fund or buy some stocks. And maybe your financial analyst will tell you, I only need to make 7 or 8%, and then I could draw 4% a year. They give you this antiquated advice that really isn't going to do anything for you. They also think, put your money in a 401k, which I personally think is a big scam, or a Roth IRA, and wait till you're 65 fucking years old when you're an old decrepit, person, and by then maybe you'll be in a position to retire. I call bullshit on that. And it's really quite simple. There's 2 phases you have to go through in life. The first phase is when you're forced to focus on earned income. And the second phase, which is the phase I'm in now, you get to enjoy the benefits of unearned income. Well, you should probably ask yourself, what is earned income? What is all that? Well, earned income is money that you have to earn through active participation in work or business. This is money that you make through wages, salaries, tips, bonuses, right? You're a server at a restaurant, you get tips, you have to work really hard. You work at a grocery store or Starbucks, whatever that is, you have to clock in and clock out. You do your 9 to 5, you get paid your W-2 salary every week. That's the average person. Or they go to their office job. They have to work, they have to labor. And you have to do that. In the very beginning, when you're starting out, you have no experience. You have no knowledge, you have no expertise in anything, you have no money, right? So you can't go out and buy real estate or something like that. You have to grind through the phase of earned income. But I do believe that there are more efficient ways to go about it. And I have other videos on my channel where I talk about it, and just to at least be very efficient here, I highly recommend sales. That's how I did it. I Google searched what the most common first job that all billionaires had, and it was sales. By the time I was 18, I was still in high school. I got my first sales job. I was selling furniture. I was making $70,000 a year in high school. The next year, I cracked over 100. The next year, I cracked over 250. What does a 20-year-old kid have to spend $250,000 a year? I saved all of that cash, and that's exactly what you need to do. The average person, they'll get a direct deposit. My check hit, I have $1,000. I have $1,000 to spend. Wrong. No, you don't. The average person thinks that they get to just spend whatever money they have. They spend more than they make. They have credit card debt. Something's wrong with that model. You have to spend less than you make. You have to focus on getting your earnings as high as possible. And there's a margin there between what you earn and what you spend. You need to make that margin as high as possible. There's only so much you could focus on cutting your expenses. I personally recommend focusing on income opportunities, developing high income skills. Some people will suggest you do Facebook ads or SEO work or copywriting or some other. I personally recommend sales. It is the easiest way to make a 6-figure income with no experience. You just got to be able to talk to people. And even if you don't feel comfortable with it, give it a shot. You'll learn on the job. But going through that first phase, which took me from about 18 to 21, I busted like hell. I worked like a dog. I worked every shift I possibly can to earn as much money as possible, and I kept as much of my money as possible, and I stacked that cash up. I didn't spend it. It was difficult, but I lived like a broke college student way after I dropped out. And this ultimately leads us to our second phase, unearned income. Unearned income is money that you get through work or investments or passive sources that you don't actively have to work for, right? They're passive income, if you want to call it. I don't like to use that word, but ultimately, I do not have to clock in or clock out to get paid. I don't even have to get out of bed to get paid. And the beauty about that is I worked like hell, made as much money as I can, and I ultimately went out, and the way I did it is I started out with real estate, and then ultimately I bought businesses. And again, at the end of the video, I'll show you exactly what I mean about how you can buy a business and how it's realistically achievable. But what I did is I labored, built up the skills, built up my income, took as much money as I can. I then invested it. And I don't agree with the conventional wisdom of slapping it in a 401k or putting it in an index fund and earning 6 to 8% over year over year. Maybe after 110 years, you might have enough money, right? I wanted to focus on cash flow, right? So I wasn't going to go take my money and put it in cryptocurrency, which is what a lot of people are doing. Because what's a Bitcoin going to do for you? What's it going to produce for you? It's just speculation. You're hoping that somebody is going to pay more for it than what you did, right? Same thing with why I would never buy gold. I could buy all the gold in the world, and after 100 years, it's still the same piece of gold. But if I bought whatever dollar amount it would have taken me to buy all that gold, say I bought a bunch of farmland. Well, after 100 years, I still have that farmland. But I have all the corn, the wheat, the soybeans, the meat, the dairy products, all the produce that we were able to harvest. Those assets were able to produce something. That's akin to cash flow, why you would buy a rental property or an apartment complex or an office building. You're collecting your rent, you're collecting cash flow. Or why I personally buy businesses, which is my preference over real estate, but I've done both. You want to be able to spend that first phase of your life, earned income, working like a dog, not partying constantly, doing what you can to save as much money as you can. And then you want to work in getting yourself in this unearned income phase where you take all that cash that you save up, you invest it in opportunities where you could earn cash flow. And so you have multiple different opportunities. That's not really the point of this video. I'll make future videos talking about ways you could invest in real estate or, for example, businesses. But just to give you an idea, when I was 23, I bought my first business. I bought a healthcare company. Well, I don't really know anything about healthcare. And so we'll talk a bit more. I'll have other videos in the future on this channel about how you could exactly buy a business if you're inexperienced. But I was able to buy this business, and I have hundreds of thousands of dollars that come in without me having to do anything. I don't have to lift a finger. I don't operate the business. Again, is this the average path for most people? No. Is it absolutely achievable? Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example at the end of the video, exactly how I was able to do it. I'll give you an idea of how you could buy a business, how you could finance it, what that looks like. But ultimately, it's really quite simple. You realize that in the beginning, when you have no experience, no knowledge, no nothing, you have to grind through the phase of earned income, that you could do it smarter. Instead of turning your brain off, working at the same pizza delivery job that you've had for 5 years where you get paid $16 an hour, you could focus on how do I make as much money as possible? What skills could I develop? Again, I recommend sales. You realize that you need to save as much money as you can. Be a cheap fucking bastard. Don't spend money. Save as much money as you can. Then ultimately, you take that money and you invest it in high leverage opportunities and opportunities where you can make not 5 or 6 or 8% a year, but 80% a year, which is absolutely possible. And so in a second here, we're going to cut the screen and we're going to give you an idea of what that looks like. Okay, guys, so I'm on my Mac now. I appreciate you sticking with me. As we spoke about in the first phase is really that earned income, really just focusing on investing in yourself, investing in your capabilities to earn and drive up your income, maintaining your expenses, or developing your capabilities to communicate and speak and lead, really just building yourself up as a person and taking all that cash that you're able to save to hopefully create opportunities or invest in opportunities where you could take advantage of unearned income. Then you could do a bunch of different stuff. You could invest in real estate. I personally love business acquisition, so that's the example I'm going to give here. But right now I'm on Biz Buy Sell, just one of the biggest websites out there where you could, buy a business, buy or sell a business. And so we're just going to pick a random example here. What is this? Okay, I know nothing about this, but it looks like it's a repair business, a jewelry repair business. So, for example, this business generates 1.648 million in revenue, cash flow of 283,000 a year, so it makes almost 300,000 a year. So what is that? 17% margin. I mean, nothing crazy. Price, they want $800,000 for it. So what's the multiple on that? So it's a 2.82 multiple. I mean, that's great. I mean, businesses, small businesses sell anywhere from, 3 to 5 times earnings typically. I mean, 2 to 4. Yeah, this is a very conservative valuation. Definitely something that's financeable. So if it's $800,000, the SBA is probably one of the biggest licenses to steal. You could buy a business for as little as 10% down. There is actually ways you could do it for even less than that, where you could do 5% down if you have a seller note, if the seller is willing to kind of be invested in the financing. So at 10%, 800,000, that's 80,000 down. Why don't we do 40,000 down? Say you have a 5% seller note, which is absolutely feasible. You could even do situations where the SBA will finance 100%.
But in this particular case, there's no real reason that if the seller is able to carry a little bit of the purchase price in the seller note, they should be able to count that towards your equity injection. So for an $800,000 purchase, you only need $40,000 down. That means you're going to need to get a loan of $760,000. Let's do loan calculator. So we're going to get a loan for $760,000. It's a 10-year loan for an SBA, say 11% interest rate, which is pretty market. So that means the monthly payment on that will be $10,469. That's the monthly payment. So that times 12, that means it's $125,000 a year in payments. The DSCR on that. And so DSCR is the debt service coverage ratio. So that's basically how much cash flow are you generating to cover the debt service. And so this particular case, for every dollar of debt service, you're generating $2.26 worth of cash flow, which that's a very healthy margin. Just to give you an idea, so if the business makes $283,000 a year and you pay $125,000 a year in debt service, the business makes $158,000 a year in cash flow that you get to keep in your pocket after you pay the bank. And understand, part of that $125,000 that you pay to the bank, a big chunk of that is principal payments. So that's not really an expense. That just goes towards your equity. And the rate of return on that would be if you earned $157,000 and you only put $40,000 down to buy the business, there's a very nice rate of return. So you got almost a 400% return on your money if all goes well. Now, I'm completely not even talking about the operational aspects of the business. Who's running the business? Do you know how to run it? Do you have any experience? What are the threats in the business? Are there any growth opportunities? Also, is that $283,000? Is that what the seller, was the seller was probably the one operating it? Is his salary included in that number? So if, you might have to reduce that number if you have to pay for a manager to run the business. So there's a lot of other factors that I'm completely not even considering. This is only looking at it from a pure kind of finance lens. This just gives you an idea where if you do find yourself in a situation where you get like a sales job, which is something that I recommend, you start making $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year, and you live like a broke college student, there's no fucking reason you shouldn't be able to save up $40,000. It's not that hard, despite what everybody says. You save that money, then start looking for businesses, start looking for real estate, whatever that is that you want to buy. Say you wanted to buy multifamily real estate, you could do a FHA loan and buy a fourplex, for example, for 3.5% down. There are opportunities out there. You just have to look for them. In this particular case, you buy a business for $40,000 out of pocket. And again, I'm keeping it relatively simple. I'm not factoring in getting accountants or lawyers to help you with due diligence. I'm not talking about any of the the transactional costs that go with this. This is just a really stupid, simple example, just to give you an idea. But basically, you put $40,000 down, you buy a business, you're doing, 1.6 million in revenue, you're making almost $300,000 a year in earnings. And out of that, after you pay the bank, you still have $157,000 left. And if you have a manager in the business that's running the business, you delegate to them, you trust them, you don't really have to do much to run it. And so I have no clue why people don't really take a hard look at this. By no means is it easy. It's actually an exceptionally difficult journey. It's very tough. There's a lot of risk, but it's extremely rewarding. As I sit here today, I'm 24 years old. I don't have to work. I haven't worked in a few years. I have a business that I run that I have an incredible manager at that I completely trust. I don't need to show up. I barely show up. If anything, I show up to that business sometimes to pick up the mail, and I don't really have to do that. That's the basics of it. And so focus on building yourself up as a person, getting your income up, keeping your expenses low, saving up as much cash as possible, and really focusing on the fact that you have to go through the phase of where your only option is earned income. Once you're able to build up as much cash as possible, then you can start to look at opportunities to develop your unearned income where you could invest in real estate or business acquisitions or whatever that may be. That's ultimately what I did. I just humped like hell. I was a salesperson. I sold furniture, televisions, mattresses, appliances, trees at some point. That's just what I did. I humped like hell. I saved up all my cash. And when I had enough cash on me, I started looking for companies to buy. Well, I did real estate prior to that. And then after that, I ultimately looked at buying companies. And it's just been completely changed my life. I don't have to get up in the morning if I don't want to. I still choose to continue to work. And now I'm making YouTube recordings because it's just what I enjoy. But I get to choose to do what I want to do because I want to do it, not because some boss tells me I have to go in and clock in or something like that. So I think it's incredibly rewarding. I highly recommend people check into it. If there's anything else that I can make a video about or talk about, please let me know. Please click here if you want to watch any other videos. I have other content about how to get a sales job, and I'm going to make subsequent videos about, a little bit more detail about what you can do to buy a business, how to operate it, how to grow it, all that type of stuff. But I appreciate everybody for sticking around. Thank you.